You're in the middle of a conversation, and a man looks at you with sincerity and says, "I've never met anyone like you before." On the surface, it sounds like a sweet compliment, a flattering remark that makes you feel special. But what if that phrase isn't just a throwaway line? What if those 9 words hold layers of meaning that go beyond casual flattery? In the realm of male communication, especially emotional communication, what is said isn't always what is truly meant. This doesn't necessarily point to deception. Rather, men often speak from a place of unconscious impulse, from ingrained behaviors and learned coping mechanisms. Many times they're communicating through instinct, rather than through conscious vulnerability. When a man says he's never met anyone like you, he's revealing a significant disruption to his internal world. Think of people as constantly running mental filters. They're categorizing, comparing and interpreting others based on their past experiences. These filters are built from former relationships, childhood dynamics, life lessons, disappointments, and desires. These experiences create shortcuts in the brain that help them make decisions quickly, including in romantic interactions. So when someone breaks that pattern, when someone doesn't fit into the usual categories, that person grabs attention. They interrupt the automation. They represent novelty, not just in appearance or personality, but in emotional impact. Novelty is one of the most powerful psychological triggers for the human brain. It evokes curiosity, excitement, and heightened awareness. From a neurological perspective, encountering something or someone novel activates the brain's reward circuitry. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure, motivation, and attention, is released. The brain begins to record this new experience more deeply, creating what scientists call an emotional imprint. This is why the beginning stages of romance often feel so intoxicating. But there's a deeper layer to consider. Not all novelty is created equal. If a man says you're different, it begs the question, different how? Is it your confidence? Your emotional intelligence? Your ability to listen deeply and speak honestly? Is it your refusal to play games? Your grounded sense of self? Your willingness to challenge him? Because difference in itself is not enough. It's the meaning behind the difference that matters. If the way you carry yourself awakens something in him, a realization, a desire to be more present, a curiosity about himself, then your presence has done something rare. It's created a rupture in his habitual way of relating. And that kind of disruption carries the potential to transform not just attraction, but attachment. Attraction versus attachment. Attraction is largely instinctive. It's about chemistry, timing, visual cues, charisma. But attachment, real attachment, happens when someone sees you as emotionally significant. And emotional significance comes from depth. So when a man tells you he's never met anyone like you, your next question should be, how has this difference affected him? Some men will feel awakened. They'll lean in, they'll reflect, they'll ask questions, they'll want to understand more, to become more. They'll want to rise to meet what you represent, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. These men are rare, but they exist. Other men, however, will be intimidated. They'll feel destabilized. Because change, even desirable change, it is frightening. When a man has spent years avoiding vulnerability, confronting his own wounds, or burying himself in performance-based identity, meeting someone who doesn't reinforce those defenses can feel threatening. This is why you often see men pull back after expressing interest. They felt something powerful, but with that feeling came a realization. Being with you might require them to grow. And growth, while beautiful, is uncomfortable. The threat of change. Think of emotional growth like climbing a mountain. The view from the top is breathtaking, but the climb demands stamina, courage, and discomfort. Some men, especially those not used to self-reflection or emotional labor, look at that mountain and hesitate. They may even admire you more from afar than up close. Why? Because from a distance, your impact remains idealized and manageable. Up close, you challenge them to step into more emotional truth. And for many men, truth requires confronting things they've avoided for years. Insecurity, failure, emotional abandonment, guilt. That's where your discernment becomes crucial. Ask yourself, is he idealizing me, putting me on a pedestal, seeing me as some unattainable goddess rather than a real complex woman? Or is he engaging with who I really am, the full version, and making an effort to grow alongside me? Idealization is dangerous. When a man places you too high on a pedestal, he stops seeing you and starts seeing a fantasy. And fantasies are easily shattered. The first time you disappoint him, show your flaws, or express your own needs, he may recoil, not because you did something wrong, but because his image of you wasn't based in reality. On the other hand, when a man sees you fully, your intellect, your honesty, your imperfections, and still chooses you, still works to understand you, that's the beginning of something real. The mirror effect. Men, like all humans, are drawn to those who reflect back an image of who they want to become. If you awaken his desire to evolve, not by demanding it, but by embodying it, then your presence becomes a mirror. You become a source of meaning, not just novelty. And meaning creates emotional weight. He may not articulate it this way. He may just say, "There's something about you I can't explain." That's often the best sign, because what can't be easily explained is what stirs the soul. But your job is not to explain it for him. Your job is not to pull him up the mountain. Your job is to observe. How does he handle the climb? Does he back away, even after admitting you're different? Or does he begin to show up more, with attention, honesty, curiosity? Because words are invitations, and what he does after he says those words, that's what tells you everything. At first glance, the phrase, "I want to show you something," might sound simple. Maybe even casual, like he's going to pull out a funny meme, a new gadget, or a cool spot he found. But if you look beneath the surface, this phrase often carries more emotional weight than we give it credit for. In fact, it may be one of the clearest signs that a man is seeking not just attention, but connection. Because here's the truth, men don't show everyone everything. While society often paints men as straightforward, stoic, or even emotionally unavailable, most men have a rich inner world, full of passions, dreams, fears, memories, beliefs. The difference is, they've often been conditioned not to share those things. Vulnerability can feel like risk. Emotional exposure can feel unsafe. So when a man says, "I want to show you something," it's not just about the thing. It's about the invitation. It's not about the object. It's about the meaning. What matters is what he wants to show you. Is it a book that changed how he sees the world? A song that makes him feel something he can't explain? A place that holds emotional memory? Or maybe a project he's been building quietly, behind the scenes? Each of these acts of sharing, when they come from a genuine place, are his way of saying, "This matters to me. I wonder if it will matter to you." And that's not nothing. It's an emotional risk. Because when someone shows you something meaningful to them, they're also showing you part of themselves, not the curated version, not the version the world sees, but something softer, more personal. And your response becomes a mirror. Will you look? Will you care? Will you understand? Or will you brush it off as irrelevant? This is why some men retreat after rejection, even small ones. It's not always ego. Sometimes it's because the thing they shared, that little piece of their inner world, wasn't received. And when a man doesn't feel emotionally received, he starts closing doors. Why sharing equals investment? There's a psychological principle here worth mentioning. The more someone invests in you emotionally, the stronger the attachment becomes. This isn't manipulation or strategy. It's simply human nature. The act of sharing creates intimacy, and intimacy builds trust. So when a man starts showing you things, pay close attention. He may be telling you how deeply he's beginning to invest, not just with his time or affection, but with his identity. And this investment often starts small. He lets you in on a family tradition. He tells you about a childhood dream. He shares his favorite movie, not because it's fun, but because it means something to him. These aren't tests per se, but they are indicators. They show you that he's trying to bridge the gap between you and him, that he wants you to see his layers, not just his charm, but his content. The question is, do you meet him there? Engagement is everything. How you respond to what he shows you matters more than you think. If you take interest, real interest, you signal something powerful. I want to know you, not just date you, not just enjoy your company. I want to understand what drives you. That kind of response builds something strong and rare, psychological intimacy. And this form of intimacy often means more to men than physical closeness. Why? Because it offers what they rarely receive: recognition. Many men are praised for what they do, but few are appreciated for who they are. When you ask questions about the thing he shows you, when you reflect back a meaningful interpretation, when you express appreciation for what it represents, you become different. You become the exception. Because now, you're not just someone he's attracted to. You're someone who sees him. But be discerning, real sharing versus performative sharing. This is important. Not all sharing is genuine. Some men will share in order to impress. They'll flash accomplishments, quote philosophers, play you the deep song, or show off something meant to create awe. But it's not always about connection. It's about validation. Here's how to tell the difference. Real sharing is vulnerable. He's open to your response, even if it's uncertain. Performative sharing is ego-driven. He wants approval, not conversation. A man who's truly letting you in will look at you. When he shares, not at your reaction for validation. He'll ask what you think. He'll want to know what it means to you, not just impress you with what it means to him. That's the difference between a performance and a partnership. What does he want in return? This is the other side of the equation. When a man shows you something meaningful, he's not just looking for applause. He's often hoping for resonance. He wants to see if your values align. He wants to know if your mind is curious. He wants to feel that his internal world isn't too weird, too deep, or too complicated to be loved. He's not just opening a door. He's hoping you'll walk in and stay. But if you respond with disinterest, or worse, if you ignore it, he'll notice. And even if he doesn't say anything, he may begin to emotionally retreat. So remember this: small things are rarely small. The book he shares, the video he sends, the long pause before he says, "I've been thinking about this a lot lately." These are windows into a world you can either step into or overlook. You have power here too. Don't forget, this exchange isn't one-sided. A relationship is not built on one person opening up while the other simply observes. The more a man shows you, the more you're invited to show something in return. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. You can start small. A story, a memory, a personal favorite, something that reveals who you are. When you do this, you begin to build a two-way bridge. And that's where real emotional intimacy is formed. Not from grand gestures, but from shared meaning. On the surface, "I just want to make you happy" sounds like the most innocent, heartwarming thing a man could say. Who wouldn't want to hear that? It feels like a declaration of care, of priority, even love. But like the other phrases we've examined, this one carries layers of meaning that go far beyond surface-level intention. When a man says he wants to make you happy, he's not just expressing affection. He's revealing something about how he sees his role in your life, and more importantly, how he measures his own value in a relationship. This is where things get deep, and sometimes complicated. The drive to provide. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, many men grow up internalizing a deep desire to be useful, to contribute, to provide, to protect, to fix. It's a psychological and even biological imprint. Evolutionarily, men's roles have long been tied to action and provision. Even in modern times, that instinct hasn't disappeared. It's just shifted forms. So when a man says, "I want to make you happy," he may not just mean, "I hope you smile." He may actually be expressing something deeper, like, "I want to matter to you. I want to be the reason you feel safe, loved, fulfilled. I want to be the person who improves your life." That's a powerful thing. And it's also a vulnerable one, because tied to this drive is a subtle emotional risk. If he can't make you happy, he may feel like he's failed. And this is where the problems can begin. Not because the desire is wrong, but because the execution can go astray if the man doesn't understand what true happiness, your happiness, actually looks like. Good intentions are not enough. Some men genuinely want to make their partner happy, but they equate that desire with performing, doing things they think will bring joy without ever stopping to ask what actually does. He may shower you with gifts you never asked for, plan elaborate dates but never ask how your day went, solve your problems when all you needed was someone to listen. And then, when you don't respond with overwhelming gratitude or joy, he feels confused, or worse, resentful. This happens when a man mistakes external gestures for emotional depth. The truth is, happiness in a relationship isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency, emotional safety, mutual respect, presence, communication, shared goals, intimacy that's both physical and emotional. A man who truly wants to make you happy is one who listens to your needs, remembers what matters to you, adapts when something isn't working, seeks feedback without defensiveness, and most importantly, he shows up when it matters, not just when it's convenient. Is it about you or about him? Another critical distinction to make. Is this desire rooted in genuine care, or is it about his ego? Some men use the phrase, "I just want to make you happy," as a kind of emotional badge, a signal of their goodness. But if you look closely, they're more focused on how they're perceived than how you're actually feeling. This might show up as needing constant praise for being a good guy, getting frustrated when you don't seem instantly happier after a gesture, avoiding accountability by saying, "But I was just trying to make you happy." In these cases, the phrase becomes less about you and more about validation. He wants to be seen as the man who makes you happy, but may not actually be listening to what brings you real joy and peace. This can lead to a dangerous emotional imbalance, where you feel pressured to express gratitude for things you didn't ask for, or guilt when you're struggling. Even though he means well, watch the actions, not just the words. Intentions matter, but in relationships, execution matters more. Does he say he wants to make you happy, but consistently ignores your emotional needs? Does he dismiss your feelings when they're inconvenient or uncomfortable? Does he retreat when you ask for something deeper, like support, vulnerability, or real communication? If so, then the phrase is just that, a phrase. But if he follows it with patience when you're upset, a willingness to talk through hard things, respect for your boundaries and growth, then you're dealing with someone whose intentions align with his behavior. That's the foundation of emotional integrity, and it's the mark of someone who isn't just saying the right things, but living them. The hidden risk, self-sacrifice. There's another side to this phrase that often goes unnoticed. The man who says it and means it, but loses himself in the process. Some men, especially those with people-pleasing tendencies, may place your happiness above their own to an unhealthy degree. They want so badly to be the one who fulfills you, that they neglect their own needs. They suppress frustrations, avoid conflict, and shape-shift to keep the peace. At first it may feel flattering, but over time, this dynamic breeds resentment in both directions. Because a relationship where one person is the emotional caretaker and the other is the emotional center is destined to collapse. True happiness cannot be sustained if it's built on imbalance. A man who truly loves you won't just give endlessly, he will also let you give back. He will let himself be seen, supported, and vulnerable too. Mutual happiness is the only kind that lasts. So what should you do when you hear this phrase? Here's what to consider when a man says, "I just want to make you happy." 1. Check the context. Is this said during a moment of connection, or as a defense during conflict? 2. Watch the follow-through. Are his actions aligned with your actual needs? 3. Reflect on the balance. Are you both contributing to each other's happiness, or is one person carrying the emotional load? 4. Assess the motivation. Is he showing care or seeking approval? And finally, ask yourself, do I feel free to express what makes me happy? Does he listen when I do? Do I feel safe being honest, even when my happiness doesn't look like his assumptions? If the answer is yes, you're in something real. If not, don't be afraid to speak up. Because real connection isn't about guessing what makes someone happy. It's about finding out, together. There's a certain gravity in the words, "I don't want to lose you." They don't come out casually, whether whispered in a quiet moment or blurted in desperation. This phrase carries the weight of emotional truth. It's the kind of thing someone says when they're face to face with the reality that what they once took for granted might no longer be guaranteed. But like all powerful statements, the meaning behind these words depends on more than just the moment. It depends on the history, the patterns, the follow-through. Because while some men say this as an awakening, a sincere recognition of your value, others say it as a last-minute attempt to maintain control over a situation they never truly invested in. And the difference? It's everything. When a man says this, he's acknowledging emotional dependence. Men are often thought of as emotionally distant or even avoidant, but that's a misinterpretation. In truth, many men develop very deep attachments. They just don't always recognize or express them the way women do. Where women often process feelings through dialogue and emotional expression, men often feel first and understand later. And one of the most common ways a man begins to understand just how much he's bonded with you is the threat of losing you. This isn't just a romantic observation. It's a neurological one. Human attachment is processed in brain systems tied to reward, safety, memory, and emotion. The sudden disruption of a secure bond, or even the fear of it, activates a cascade of emotional and physiological responses. So when a man says, "I don't want to lose you," he may be coming to terms with how much you matter to him, feeling the first stirrings of panic or grief, realizing that he was more emotionally dependent than he allowed himself to admit. But here's the key. Not all fear of loss is born from love. Some of it comes from ego, from fear of change, from the discomfort of consequences. Two kinds of fear, two kinds of men. Let's be brutally honest here. There are two main types of men who say, "I don't want to lose you." One, the realizer. This man has genuinely been impacted by your presence. Maybe he didn't always show it perfectly. Maybe he made mistakes. But when he says he doesn't want to lose you, it's because something inside him has shifted. He's seeing you and the relationship and with clarity. His fear isn't just about loneliness. It's about meaning. He knows your presence adds something essential to his life. And if he's sincere, this fear will be followed by action. He'll listen deeply. He'll ask hard questions of you and himself. He'll take steps to repair, adjust, and evolve. This kind of man sees loss as a wake-up call, not a temporary crisis to survive. He won't just say, "I can't lose you." He'll show you, "I'm ready to become the person who deserves you." 2. The panicker. This man, on the other hand, says he doesn't want to lose you, but not because he fully values you. He fears change. He fears accountability. He fears starting over. He's not saying, "I don't want to lose you." He's saying, "I don't want to lose the comfort, the familiarity, the convenience." This man likely ignored your concerns until you pulled away, repeated behaviors that hurt you, took your presence for granted until it was threatened. When he says, "I don't want to lose you," he may cry, beg, promise. But if this fear isn't accompanied by real self-reflection and consistent change, then his words are not about love. They're about avoiding the pain of consequences, not about becoming a better partner. This is emotional manipulation at worst, and emotional immaturity at best. Your response sets the tone. If a man tells you he doesn't want to lose you, don't be swept away by the raw emotion. Yes, the words can be moving, but your job is not to soothe his panic or take on the emotional labor of fixing the situation. Instead, ask, "What part of me or this relationship are you afraid of losing? What would keeping me in your life actually require of you? What are you willing to change to build something better?" His answers, or lack thereof, will tell you everything. If he stammers, deflects, or clings to you without clarity, he may not be ready. If he answers honestly, takes ownership, and begins to act differently, that's worth noticing. Don't confuse desperation with devotion. This is the line that many people confuse. Desperation feels intense. It often shows up as long emotional texts, sudden, unexpected grand gestures, promises to change, often made in emotional, high-stakes moments. But devotion? Devotion shows up in consistency, in the boring stuff, the quiet moments, the follow-through. A devoted man doesn't just fight to keep you. He lives in a way that honors having you. Doesn't just fear your loss, he values your presence. doesn't just make promises. He builds trust, one action at a time. The man who truly doesn't want to lose. You will not wait until you're gone to make things right. He will already be doing the work to create something worth staying for. Here's the hard part. You must ask yourself, are you staying because you're afraid to be alone? Or because he's showing up in a way that deserves your presence? Too many women stay in relationships where men panic at the threat of loss, but never do the work to truly keep them. The result? A cycle of withdrawal, promises, temporary efforts, and emotional fatigue. You deserve better than that. You deserve someone who treasures you while you're there, not just when you're halfway out the door. What you can look for instead. If a man says he doesn't want to lose you, that's a moment of truth. What follows will tell you whether it was real. Look for effort without being asked, emotional openness, even when it's uncomfortable, a shift in how he handles conflict, communication, and your needs, a willingness to grow without you having to lead every step of the way, because the real sign that he doesn't want to lose you isn't in the words, it's in the evolution. By now, you've seen just how much meaning is packed into a few simple phrases. I've never met anyone like you before. I want to show you something. I just want to make you happy. I don't want to lose you. They sound like compliments, romantic declarations, or acts of vulnerability. And sometimes they are. But often they're only part of the story. Words are easy to speak, especially when emotions are high or consequences feel close. So now, in this final part, we go deeper. We ask the real question. How do you move beyond decoding language and start identifying truth? Because that's what this is all about. Not just hearing what a man says, but understanding what he shows. Patterns over phrases. If you take one thing away from this entire series, let it be this. Words are only as meaningful as the patterns that support them. Anyone can say, you're different. Anyone can say, I want to make you happy. Anyone can say, please don't go. But what matters is what he does when you're not looking. What choices he makes when things get hard. What his instincts are when you're upset. When you're quiet. When you express your needs. What he defaults to when there's nothing to gain and no spotlight to stand in. The right man won't just speak beautiful truths. He'll live them. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when he's tired. Even when you're not asking for anything. Because when someone truly values you, you won't have to keep decoding. You'll feel it in the way they respond to your boundaries, include you in their future, handle conflict with humility, not control, show up for your emotional needs, not just your physical presence. This is how you stop guessing. This is how you stop asking, what does he mean by that? And start saying, I already know who he is by how he moves. Emotional maturity can't be faked. Let's get practical. Here are 3 markers of emotional maturity that you should always look for behind any of the romantic phrases men might say. 1. Alignment between words and actions. This is non-negotiable. If he says he wants to make you happy, but refuses to listen when you express what actually makes you happy, that's not maturity, it's performance. If he says you're different but treats you like every woman before you, love bombing, pulling away, repeating old cycles, then your difference is a fantasy, not a fact he respects. Mature men speak with intention and follow it up with effort. Not perfection, but intentionality. 2. Comfort with discomfort. Does he shut down when conversations get emotional? Or does he stay present even if it's hard? Does he get defensive when you offer feedback? Or does he listen, reflect, and respond with care? Emotionally available men can tolerate discomfort, their own and yours. That's how you know they're not just in it for the good times. They're in it for the real ones. 3. Desire for mutual growth. The best relationships are made up of 2 people who want to evolve, together and individually. That means he's not just asking, what can I do for you? He's also asking, how can we grow together? How can I become a better partner? Not to impress you, but because I want to be that man? That's not just romance. That's real intimacy. Stop rewarding the performance. One of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your dating life is this. Stop rewarding men for saying the right things. Start paying attention to the emotional economy of your connection. What does he invest? What does he follow through on? What does he take ownership of? Because the wrong men will always say just enough to keep you near, especially when they feel they're losing you. The right man, he doesn't need to dangle reassurance or dramatic lines. He shows up early, consistently, with steady energy, not adrenaline-fueled theatrics. He won't need you to explain that. "I just want to make you happy" isn't about flowers once a month. He'll know that it's about support, trust, and your emotional peace. Ask better questions. Instead of asking, "What does he mean when he says," ask, "What is his track record? What's the energy he brings into my life? What version of me do I become around him? Safe or confused? Is there a steady build here or just waves of intensity?" These questions reveal more than any phrase ever could. Because if you're constantly decoding, you're probably also compensating. You're filling in blanks, rewriting intentions, and holding up a dynamic that doesn't hold you up in return. That's not love. That's labor. And while love requires effort, it should never require you to be the only one doing the work of emotional clarity. How you'll know it's real? You'll stop asking what he meant, because he'll show you. He'll tell you you're different. And he'll treat you with deeper respect, not just deeper desire. He'll say he wants to show you something, and then make space for you to share too. He'll want to make you happy, and ask what that truly means to you. He'll say he doesn't want to lose you, and act like someone who treasures you before he's at risk of losing you. You'll know because you'll feel it. In your nervous system, in your body, in the calm of your mind. The right man won't create confusion. He will create clarity. Final word, know your worth without translation. The ultimate goal isn't just to understand what men mean. It's to get to a point where you're no longer wondering what they mean at all. Because you've chosen to engage with people who speak clearly, love openly, and act with consistency. The right person will not make you work overtime for emotional security. The right person will not give you beautiful words and empty space. The right person will not be a mystery you have to decode. Because when love is real, the message is simple. You won't have to translate, you'll just know. Ready to stop decoding mixed signals and start attracting real emotional intimacy? Subscribe now for more raw, unfiltered insights on love, relationships, and how to recognize genuine connection before it slips away. Join a community if you are done settling for breadcrumbs and ready to choose clarity, confidence, and connection. Hit that subscribe button. Your heart deserves more than confusion. It deserves truth.